Extreme Monsters, Book 1, The Blue Moon Effect, Chapter 6, Let the Games Begin.
So that's his game,
Doc exclaimed.
Damon thinks he can store blue moon energy like electricity in a battery.
It was mid-afternoon, and Doc and the Extreme Monsters had gathered at Val's garage as the team captain had requested, and unsmiling Val had just finished telling the story of what he'd learned inside Damon's war room.
Is it possible?
Asked Jinx. She cracked open a box containing 2 foam bumpers for her new replacement luge.
Can Damon use satellite dishes to download blue moon rays? I'm afraid so, Jinx,
Doc said. He did some fast arithmetic.
With 8 dishes, he could harvest enough blue energy to last his team a century.
Then I guess we're sunk, said Steiner.
Team Pendant is going to have the best extreme athlete lineup in the world, with super monsters and human superstars like Brentwood and Squire. They'll be way better than us.
He kicked the pedal of his BMX bike in frustration.
The league might as well crown Damon the king of extreme. I wouldn't go that far,
Doc replied.
I think our friend Damon could be in for a few nasty surprises.
What do you mean? Val asked.
I've been doing some research, Doc said. My calculations show that blue moon energy is incredibly strange stuff. The harder you try to cram it into a small space, the harder it resists.
Are you saying it pushes back? Said Jinx.
Exactly. It's very springy.
Said Val, thinking out loud.
So if Damon tries to force too much blue energy into his battery, it could literally explode or simply go and melt away like cotton candy in a rainstorm.
Sheesh, exclaimed Wolf.
But to be honest with all of you,
Doc went on,
I'm far less concerned about Damon's battery melting down than I am about our biggest blue moon mystery.
Which is? Asked Jinx.
What's going to happen during the games when the neutralizer wristbands overload and blow?
You still think they'll blow, Doc? Wondered Steiner.
Sky high,
said Doc.
There's no doubt about it. The neutralizers weren't made to absorb such a sudden surge in monster powers.
And when they do? Questioned Val.
Everyone in the park, humans and monsters alike, will be zapped with weird magical forces.
Sounds totally wild, dudes, said Wolf.
Way wild,
Doc replied.
As I've mentioned before, blue energy itself can't harm humans, but raw monster magic bouncing freely around a sports park can do unbelievable mischief.
Like what? Asked Jinx. Doc shook his head grimly.
I have no way of predicting. Every time I ask my supercomputer that question, its genius brain goes into overload.
What's the worst that could happen? Jinx pressed.
The worst case? You could see humans growing fishtails, witches sprouting dragon wings, werewolves turning into hairless humans. You name it, it could happen.
Wolf gasped. Dude, you mean I could become a bull human forever?
Maybe not for that long,
Doc replied,
but probably long enough to feel uncomfortable without your whiskers.
Bela gave a loud gulp. Say, guys, he said, I've just had a fabulous idea. How about if all of you go to the games alone this year and I sort of stay home? That way I can make sure we get everything on videotape from start to finish. Chill, Bela, Jinx scolded in a low voice. This is no time for a bat to turn chicken. So what's our game plan for Halloween, Doc? Inquired Val.
The tried and true one,
Doc replied.
Today and tomorrow I want each of you to exercise and practice for your events. Then tomorrow night I want all of you to get a good night's sleep. I need you to be in top physical and mental condition.
What about our tubes of MPF 1313, Doc? Steiner asked. Doc slapped his forehead.
Thanks for reminding me. It had totally slipped my mind.
He paused for a minute to think.
Damon knows by now that Val has the tubes, so he can't leave them here overnight. I'll need another one of you to take them away and find somewhere safe to store them until the games tomorrow.
I'll do it, Doc, said Steiner, raising his hand.
I know a good hiding place a couple of blocks from our house. Excellent, son,
Doc replied.
I'll also need you to fetch the tubes for me tomorrow, so that I can check them one last time before the games. Then you can take them along with you to the sports park.
Gotcha, Steiner replied.
In the meantime,
Doc went on,
I'm going to crank out more formula. We probably won't have enough tubes to protect everyone at the games,
he said,
but we may be able to protect a couple hundred monsters. The big challenge, of course, will be to persuade them to put it on. Like T-Rex, they may think we're just trying to pull off some ridiculous Halloween hoax.
Doc put on his knapsack and headed out to the garage. Before hopping into his LUV, he turned and said,
Let's hope for the best, but be prepared for the worst. Ready or not, Halloween games, here we come.
At 9 p.m. sharp on Halloween, T. Rexford Snatchley waddled out into a grassy field in the center of the BMX dirt track at the Monstery Valley Extreme Sports Park. After making a brief welcoming speech, the league president, who was dressed as a kazoo, gave a quick hand signal.
Let the Halloween games begin,
T-Rex shouted into a microphone. Suddenly 100 spotlights flashed on. Night turned into day. Slowly the satellite dishes surrounding the park lifted their silver faces toward the rising moon. A giant television screen on top of the scoreboard lit up, and a huge roar went up from the crowd of spectators dressed their coolest for the festivities. The most eagerly awaited sports event in Monstery Valley was finally underway. The Extreme Monsters captain was not in a happy mood, though. Outfitted as a kid-sized grandfather clock, Val was growing increasingly anxious with every tick of his costume. The half-mile BMX race was set to start in 25 minutes. Steiner was the team star entry in the event, but he hadn't arrived yet. Even more troubling, Doc hadn't shown up either. The last time Val had spoken to him was about 2 hours ago. Doc had reported that he was almost finished making the last batch of MPF. All he had to do was to fill the tubes with lotion. Once that was done, he intended to drive directly over to the sports park and meet the Extreme Monsters. Val hadn't heard a word from Doc since then, and the scientist wasn't answering his home phone, his cell phone, or his pager. That was not a good sign. Val knew it wasn't like Steiner or Doc to be late for a competition, especially one as important as this. Not only did Val need them to field a full team, but he also needed their tubes of moon screen. Most monsters at the sports park already had on their regular strength moon blocker. Some wore it in the form of colorful body paint. Without any MPF to shield them, the Extreme Monsters were at the mercy of the rising moon. Val stared at the moon as it hung, seemingly motionless, above the stadium. It was large and round, a bright, ghostly white. There wasn't a trace of blue in it, or even a hint of blueness yet to come. But whether the moon was colored blue or white didn't matter much to Val at that moment. It was a full moon, and already Val could feel his forehead beginning to tingle. It was the first sign of one of his bad lunar headaches coming on. He knew that Wolf and Jinx and Mumford were probably feeling it too. Unless Steiner or Doc arrived soon with the MPF, Val wasn't sure the extreme monsters could safely participate in any events. That would give a giant boost to Team Pendant's chances of sweeping the games. Then he heard it, a rhythmic metallic noise in the distance. It was approaching fast, extremely fast. Val sighed with relief. His super hearing was detecting the familiar and unmistakable pumping sound of Steiner on his BMX. Val unlatched the hinges of his clock costume, swung open the clock face, and peered in the direction of the sound. He could see Steiner now. He was zipping toward the sports park, up and down a roller coaster of soft brown hills. 2 minutes later, Steiner came to a screeching halt in front of Val, his wheels spitting rocks and dirt. He was dressed as a shining knight, complete with aluminum foil armor and a silverized plastic helmet with a red plume. "Where have you been?" Val asked. "Your race starts in 20 minutes. Steiner yanked off his helmet. He was gasping for air. "Got tubes for Doc to check like we agreed. While I was out of house, Damon's goons ambushed Doc. They jumped me when I returned. I broke loose. Doc kidnapped." Val's face paled. "Kidnapped Doc? Oh no. And the MPF? All stolen except for these." He handed Val a torn paper bag containing 3 MPF 1313 tubes. "This is all I could grab back." Val took the bag and stuffed it inside the door of his clock. "Did you recognize any of the goons?" "Just Clem and Cletus Sline for sure," Steiner panted. "I saw them stuff Doc into one of Dateman's communications vans. I saw the number before they drove off." Steiner hung his head in shame. "I failed, Val," he muttered. "I failed Doc and I failed the team." "Wrong," responded Val. "You did the best you could. You kept Damon from getting all the MPF. You found out where they're hiding Doc, and you got away yourself." He looked Steiner in the eyes and said, "Be honest with me. Are you able to ride?" "Absolutely. Cletus Sline is riding against me in the half-mile BMX. I'm not going to let him get away with what he did. I'm going to make him eat dirt." "That's our Steiner," exclaimed Val, giving him a high five. Val quickly examined Steiner's bike for signs of damage. It looked fit to ride. Then he handed Steiner a neutralizer wristband. "Hurry, there are only 16 minutes left," he said. "Put on this wristband and ditch your armor. There's no rule you have to wear a costume during the race. We've got to get some MPF 1313 on you." Steiner shook his head. "I don't want any. Don't be crazy. I'm not. We only have 3 tubes for 5 athletes. My costume's shiny. It reflects light. Maybe it will protect me from the full moon. Use the tubes for yourself and the others." "It's too dangerous," Val said. "It might work while the moon's still white, but what will happen when the moon turns blue? I don't want to risk it." "Sorry, Captain," Steiner said, flipping down his visor. "I'm not giving you a choice." And with that, he shot off on his bike toward the BMX starting line, leaving Val holding the bag.